What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Geri Alisha.
And your girl, Alisha J. Hey, girl.
Hey,
Hey.
girl. Hey, y'all, listen. We are back for another episode of the Journey to Motherhood podcast. And y'all, today we have a treat for y'all. I'm not even finna do a whole intro like we usually do because we got something special for you guys.
Yes.
So, if you've been rocking with us since last year, you know that me and Alisha were both on a podcast of one of our friends, Beth. And you also know that I spoke at her conference last year.
Yes.
Well, guys, we have Beth in the studio with us. We are
Woo!
so freaking excited
Hey,
to have her. Hey, Beth.
hey, y'all. How are y'all? It's so good to be with y'all. And it's kind of weird to be on this side of the mic.
Yes.
So if I turn into a control freak and try to take over, put me in my place and remind me where
It's
I am.
okay.
It's all
It's okay. I promise, Beth, it is okay. So, Beth, for the people that don't know you, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is
Sure.
Beth Forbus?
Whew. So I live in the crazy state of Louisiana. Louisiana has its own special kind of crazy. We need Jesus down here. I love this place. It is my home. We eat too much and we fry everything, and you got
Okay.
crazy Cajuns running around everywhere. So how could you not love a place like Louisiana, right? I've been married to my husband Jason for 27 years tomorrow. Tomorrow's our anniversary.
Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Yes.
We have one miracle daughter after a hard-fought journey with infertility, and two dogs that shed too much. And I probably have dog hair on me as we speak. So let's not
Listen,
zoom in
Beth,
any
I
closer.
am in that club with you. My
Yes.
dog's 7. She sheds like nobody's business. So I understand the struggle.
Yes. So
No
let's not
dog
zoom
hair
in.
on this end.
Alisha, I'm still working on you so you can get a dog.
You would love my dog. He's stupid as he can be, but he's the
Oh,
sweetest little thing, and
no.
he's really cute. And I say that affectionately because him being stupid is what makes me love him, because he's the funniest dog I have ever seen in my entire
That
life.
is hilarious.
I
He
love
doesn't move
it.
his head from a hole in
He
the
is
ground.
the
I mean,
stupidest dog.
Oh,
when the doorbell rings or somebody knocks at the front door, he takes off running to the back door
Oh,
to see
wow.
who it is.
Okay.
He's not the brightest crayon, but he's a sweet baby.
no.
So
Okay. Hey,
So-
he makes up for it somewhere.
yes,
That
yes.
is hilarious. Okay, so Beth, you said that you have your miracle daughter, Lexi, who is so freaking sweet and she's
She
so
is.
And
adorable.
she can sing. That girl
That
She's
I
hiding.
didn't know.
She's hiding in the back room back there.
Yes. Girl, I follow her on Instagram and I was like, oh, Lexi can sing.
I didn't know that. I'm gonna have to check it
She
out.
loves it. I go to sleep most nights hearing her singing worship songs in my den.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
so yeah, she loves it.
I love that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I do
Beth,
too.
tell us a little bit of background about you. How did you become Beth Forbus, the founder of Sarah's Laughter and
Sure.
all things infertility support and all of that?
All the things. So Jason and I started off our marriage just like most people do. I mean, we fell for each other. We knew we wanted to be together, and we got married.
Mhm.
And like so many people do, we planned to wait for a year and then have our boy, and 2 years later have our girl, because you know how when you make your plans, they always work out the way you think they're going to.
Of course,
And so
sure. If that's the story you want to go with,
I
Beth,
mean,
go ahead.
right. And so we started trying to conceive after we'd been married about a year.
Mhm.
And I had a cousin who had PCOS and who had a midterm loss. And so it kind of made me a little bit paranoid, to be honest with you. And I thought I was being silly, but I decided I was going to do everything right. And I went to my doctor and told her what our plans were, that we were ready to conceive, and told her about my cousin and everything. And would she mind, giving me some advice? What do I need to do? And she told me to come back in 6 months if I had not conceived, which was really a blessing because I was only 28 and we had just started trying, which y'all know is not how things usually happen. I believe it was the hand of God, and I was too naive to know it. But at the 6 month, the day that 6 months was over, I was back in that doctor's office because I had not conceived, and 6 months was just way too long to wait. And so I talked to her and she ran some blood tests and I started picking up my first infertility diagnoses. She diagnosed me with PCOS. She did an HSG on me to check my tubes and see if they were open, and they were. And when my tubes were open, she told me, she said, Beth, you're a little beyond what I can do for you, which to me felt so devastating. But I am so thankful that she did that and sent me on to a fertility specialist. And so when I got to my fertility specialist, that was another God ordained moment that I had no clue was happening. His name was Dr. Webster. And Dr. Webster was an amazing, godly man who, believed in the sanctity of life and all, and told me that he was willing to go as aggressively as I was, and he'd pull back when he needed to. And that's exactly what happened. He started treatments with me. We started doing IUIs and all these things. And, on paper, everything looked great and nothing was happening. Jason had no diagnoses.
Wow.
My hormone levels were great. Everything was great. IUIs were perfectly, nothing was happening. And so Dr. Webster suggested we go into surgery just to let him look around and see what was going on. And while I was in surgery, we got our second diagnosis of endometriosis. And so that was something that he was able to treat, put me on medicine that made me a crazy woman. And so
I've heard that about different fertility medicines. They make your hormones go all types of ways.
I fit the Louisiana crazy to a T. Because God love him, Jason would come home from work and he didn't know if I was going to be furious at him or sobbing my eyeballs out or thrilled to see him, or all three in 5 minutes.
Okay.
It wreaked havoc on my emotions. I really struggled with the emotions that go through, what happens when you come on some of these fertility drugs. Some people don't have it. I did. My doctor put me on a medicine for the endometriosis that caused the most massive hot flashes I've ever had in my life. So Jason also never knew when he was going to walk in the house and I'm ripping my shirt off. It had nothing to do with him. I was so hot I couldn't stand it. I don't know if there's how free you get on your podcast, Geri.
Listen, we talk about everything.
Because I'm I'm sure he was like confused. He was like, "Are we about to get down? What's happening?"
He walks in and I'm throwing clothes and saying, "Get away from me!" So it was
confused, right?
He was so confused.
Just a little confusion, nothing major.
No, he had, and remember, we'd only been married a year. So he's probably he's reevaluating his life choices at this point.
He was probably like, "What have I gotten myself into? What is happening here?"
Right. So, but I got diagnosed with PCOS. I got diagnosed with endometriosis. I was taking pills every day and taking shots every day, going through surgeries, and getting incredibly discouraged and crying all the time. And really, I was raised in a pastor's home. And so in my family, the Bible was discussed like football is discussed everywhere else. It was free and it was open. And I thought everybody talked like that. I had no idea that so many people don't know the depth and the beauty of scriptures. But I had been so blessed to be raised like that and be raised by a dad who would get up at 4:00 every morning just to pray for us. So that's the environment that I grew up in. And I was doubting God more than I had ever doubted anything in my life, because I tended to give God my spiritual resume. God, I've been a Christian since I was a child, and I've taught Sunday school, and I pay my tithes, and we give to missions, and I would give him my spiritual resume as to why he needed to give me that baby. And, God is so patient with us, and he's so kind, and he knows that we are ignorant children sometimes, and he works with us through those confusing moments when you're wrestling with, is God who he says he is? And will he do what he says he'll do? Because you can hear it at church all you want to, but when something like multiple diagnoses hits a young couple a year into marriage, that's when the rubber hits the road. And it's like, is this something that mom and daddy taught me and it was good tradition? Or is this I need to know, God, are you really who you say you are? Are
Mm-hmm.
you really a comforter? Are you really a provider? Are you really my healer? While every time I go to the doctor, I get another diagnosis.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was a lot of the struggle for me. And God proved himself very strong. Um, at probably the darkest moment of our infertility, um, I had gone for a walk, and my husband was working with the teenagers at our church, and he had given them an assignment to do. He told them to spend some time alone thinking about how God had been good to you. And I did not want to do that. I was hurt and I was mad and I was frustrated and I was scared I would never be a mama. And I did it out of obligation to my husband.
So
And I
you're
went for
feeling all the things, and you're just
all
like,
the things,
you asked, so
all
here it
the things.
is, but this is
That's
not
right.
what I want to do.
That's right. That's right. And so I went for a walk through our neighborhood, and I was not being incredibly grateful while I told God how grateful I was for the things that he did. You know, it's like, all right, God, you gave me a good family. You allowed me to go to a good Christian college and to have a great husband. And that was about my attitude in this prayer. You know, just being honest with you, I don't see any need to sugarcoat anything because God knows anyway.
Right.
Uh, and I'm doing this, and I felt God speak to me more clearly than he ever has in my life before that time or since. And I felt like God said to me, Beth, why do you want this baby?
Mm.
And I thought, you know what? If God's going to talk to me, I'm going to answer him. And so I just said, well, God, I want this, but I want a baby so I can teach this baby, so I can comfort this baby, so I can, you know, answer questions, pick them up when they fall down and comfort them and teach them things. And I was listing all these things about what I wanted this baby for. And it was in that moment that I heard God say to me, Beth, that's what I want for you. I want to love you. I want to comfort you. I want to come in the middle of your worst nightmare and let you know you're going to be okay. And man, I began to see those parallels between what I wanted in a child and what my heavenly Father wanted in a relationship with me. And, you know, and I remember him saying to me, Beth, you know how you feel when you see those pregnant women and those babies just won't come to you? He said, Beth, that's how I feel when you don't come to me.
Mm.
And, you know, I'm not one of these people who has this running conversation with God. And so that was a very sacred moment for me because it was different than any other experience in my life, even now. And it was really a turning point in my infertility. I will not tell you that I didn't cry anymore and I didn't get frustrated and mad and sad and, you know, all the things. But it really was a turning point in my infertility because I began to see that God was passionate about my story and that he was working his way through it. So we went on a little ways after that endometriosis surgery and treated that and working on the PCOS and all these things. And we did finally conceive our daughter, Lexi. And she was a miracle baby in every way, shape, and form. Her life has been full of miraculous events from not just, it didn't stop with her conception or her birth.
Mm.
You know, we've seen lots of things that are only explained by the hand of God in her life. We did go back and try a second time to conceive and try to bring a second child into the family. And for whatever reason, it didn't work. We did the same kinds of treatments. My endometriosis came back with a vengeance. And so just
wow.
in the short time between Lexi's birth and our attempt to conceive a second time, the endometriosis went to a stage 4 with what they call chocolate cysts. And so I was on treatment a lot longer after that. And we eventually got to the point where we felt like God had completed our family with Jason, me, and Lexi, and dogs, you know.
Of course, the dogs.
I continue. One thing that I think people don't realize, you continue. There are some parts of infertility that linger long after a baby comes. Endometriosis being one of those things. I ended up having multiple surgeries after we quit trying to conceive, and ended up with a hysterectomy at 44 because of it.
Mm.
But I'm grateful for the doctor that God placed in our path. He was instrumental in Sarah's Laughter being started. He was on our board of directors for a long time. He gave us our first IVF to give away.
Wow.
So And so he was truly a godsend in my life. And his part of our story shows me how you may not see it at that moment, but God is just giving you these, I call them daily double portions. Because, in scripture, Elkanah would give Hannah a double portion of food to show her, hey, I love you. I get it. This is tough,
Mm-hmm.
but I want you to know my affection for you. And
Yeah.
I believe God just gives us those daily double portions every day that we walk through this journey, whether it's a song or a text from a friend or a pastor's sermon or, contact, making contact with a good doctor or support group or whatever. So after Lexi's birth and after we kind of resolved our story, we just actually, it was while we were trying to get pregnant the second time, we launched Sarah's Laughter because this is too hard to go through by yourself.
Yeah.
And I felt God was really leading us to do that. And he's been faithful in it. Sarah's Laughter will be 20 years old next year.
Wow. That's amazing. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That is on so many levels.
Right.
I just think how, me and Alisha talk about all the time. Like nobody was really talking to us about fertility issues. So to know that there was somebody talking about it, we just didn't know you, but there was somebody talking about it. That makes my heart so happy because there are so many women that are like, I don't have anybody to talk to. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so just to know that even 20 years ago, there was somebody was there. So that makes my heart so happy.
Yeah, part of the catalyst, I think, for trying to do something. Remember, we didn't have social media and all that stuff back then. So it really was hard to get word out then. But I had found a chat room, an infertility chat room.
Wow.
That was the only support that I could find outside of my family.
Wow.
And there was like one or two, like a book that you could find. And the message that I got is if you prayed hard enough, you wouldn't be infertile. And you certainly wouldn't you certainly wouldn't miscarry. And so that was right. That was what was available when we were going through this. Oh, it was
that is not helpful at all.
Not at all. And so that's part of the reason that we tried really hard to get good, godly, biblically defensible resources out there. I'm not going to put anything on a page that I can't back up scripturally because of that experience. So as awful as that was for me, I think God used it, because I don't know, I might have been a little more slack on things if I had not walked through some woman telling me, well, Beth, you shouldn't pray hard enough, so that's me in a nutshell.
Wow.
I'm loving the story.
I love your story.
For sharing it.
Simply because like you're older than us. And so I can only imagine how it was back then, being a young woman and you're not knowing what's going on with your body. You don't have anybody to talk to. And so you saw the need for Sarah's Laughter. You saw the need for infertility support. You said, you know what, I'm going to do this. And so I really love that because not many people would do that. Like many people don't want to do that now. So I can imagine 20 years ago, many people did not want to do that.
Well, I appreciate that, but I didn't have a clue what I was doing if the truth was told.
I mean, if we're honest, most of us have no clue what we're doing.
Just getting out there. Just getting out there and trying to do, and I have to tell you, Daddy was like I said, he was a pastor and he was wonderful. He was so wonderful. And he was so supportive of Sarah's Laughter in its infancy. And he was telling one of his pastor friends about it, and just saying, hey, so my daughter has this infidelity ministry.
Oh gosh.
And he said, based on her own experience. And I was like, Daddy, no. Daddy, no, because he called it the infidelity ministry based on my own experience. I'm like, so anyway,
this is not what this is, sir.
Right? So
you gotta love it though. It's kind of cute.
He corrected himself with his friend on the phone.
We're glad about that.
Right? Thank God it was his friend on the phone, and we laughed about that. But God has brought it a really long way from not having a clue what to do, and honestly, the best things that Sarah's Laughter have done have happened on accident. The things that I tend
about that.
For example, we do a fun run called Baby Steps, and we do it about once a year. The pandemic messed us up with that, but We do a fun run to bring awareness to what women go through as they walk through infertility, and also to point people to the support that's available. And so we do it here in Baton Rouge, and all the fertility clinics join in with us, and the doctors are out there and they're giving me IVFs to give away. And, we've seen about 20 some odd babies born or adopted because of the giveaways at Baby Steps. So God's hand has been on that. So crazy. But honest to God, y'all, we had a support group one night, and one of my girls was a runner, and she said, Beth, you know what we ought to do? She said, we ought to do a fun run. That would be fun. And I said, okay. And that was the majority of the decision-making process. I said,
whatever works.
When the group was over, Jason and I were getting ready to go to bed. I was like, hey, I have an idea for what we need to do. And he said, what? And I said, I want to do a fun run. And he said, okay. I said, what do we have to do? Just find a place and get some t-shirts? And I literally thought that was the majority of the work. I was so dumb, but I think if God had told me, you're going to be working till midnight, and so is Jason, for at least 3 months every night before this thing starts, and you're going to have to ask people for money and go ask doctors for, a $20,000 IVF to give away, and I want you to do this. And, oh, by the way, there needs to be 1,000 people there the first time.
Yeah.
I would have said no. And so I guess that's why I say the things that God has done with Sarah's Laughter. He starts on accident because he knows if I knew more, I'd tell him no.
Exactly. For real.
So that and our podcast too. Our church does a podcast, and they asked Jason and me to come on. It's a marriage and family podcast. And they asked us to come on and talk about infertility. And we walked out of there and I said, hey, you want to start a podcast? And he was like, yeah, that'd be fun. And we went home and ordered microphones. We didn't know, we didn't know anything about it. We literally went home and ordered microphones and started a podcast like the next week.
But can we talk about how your husband just supports whatever you say you should do?
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
So I'll tell you that he says that his calling is to support the vision that God has given me.
I love that.
And it's ridiculous. He has taken off 3 days this week. I'm sorry, 2 days this week, and then he's taken off tomorrow to work on my book. I've written it, but he's doing the formatting and working on the cover and doing everything that needs to happen.
So sweet.
I could not ask for anybody to get behind me more than Jason. Now he says don't put him in front of a mic. He has no desire to do that.
Jason's like, look, I will do all the background stuff. Like you get in front of the mic because I'm not doing it.
Right. No, he would be mortified to be sitting here in front of y'all tonight.
Oh no, not mortified.
But he would be great to edit and everything else. But he was like, you do the mics, you do the words, I'll do the computer, I'll do the formatting and all the stuff. So
that is hilarious.
He's pretty amazing at that.
Nope.
Yeah, he's like, I got your back.
You got that.
This is like, I got your back. However, do not ask me to get in front of nobody. And no.
You pegged it. You pegged it.
It's still awesome to have that support, because I know
absolutely
so many wives that are out here by themselves.
Like for real.
So to have that
support
really is amazing.
There would be no Sarah's Laughter if it were not for Jason. I could not. I could not do what we've done. I couldn't. I don't know how to. And all he just tells me, you give me the ideas, I'll make it work.
I love that.
I love that.
So it's every bit as much his ministry as it is, under me.
Yeah, and that's how it should be, especially if you're doing something together, because that support means everything when you don't know what you're doing. Like when you have no idea, that support means everything.
Everything.
It really does.
Systems are just so important.
It does.
Yes.
He edits the podcast. He does everything that you don't see. He does.
That's good.
Listen.
Shout out to Jason Forbus. Yes. We love you, Jason.
We love you.
Thank you for allowing Beth to do what she does, because we need her. So Beth, how long have you been doing the Sarah's Laughter podcast?
The podcast? I think we started it in 16. I think it was 2016 that we started the podcast.
Okay. And how has that been for you?
It has, like I said, it started because we thought it was neat and wanted to go buy microphones. God just does that with me. I don't know. It has been probably one of the most fulfilling parts of this ministry, because we do our interview just like this, just talking to people that have gone through infertility or still in it, or even those who come alongside those who walk through infertility and loss. And we have had just about every story that you can imagine on that podcast. We've had stories of embryos that were lost on a FedEx truck. We've had stories.
Wait a minute. Wait, Beth, slow down.
Slow down. Yeah.
Slow down.
Oh my God.
The embryos got lost on a FedEx truck?
The courier was using FedEx to transport an embryo from one clinic to another. And the embryo never arrived. Because it has to be there at a certain time, and it never arrived. And
temperature, right?
I will never forget her running into the support center, the Sarah's Laughter Support Center, and telling me they couldn't find her embryos, or she had lost the embryo. That's what she said. She had lost the embryo. And I thought, how? You're not to transfer yet. I was like, did it not survive a thaw? What happened? And she said, no, they lost it. And she said the FedEx driver couldn't find the tank that it was in, and they eventually found it in a warehouse somewhere. So we have stories like that on our podcast.
What in the world?
Right. And we have an episode of a girl was going for a transfer, and they were thawing the embryo, and it exploded, which until that podcast, I didn't know that you could do that.
You can explode an embryo?
What?
Mm-hmm. Because either it was thawed one way, no, it was frozen one way and thawed another, or something like that, and it exploded. The pipe that it was in exploded. So we have stories like that. We have a story on there from a precious woman in Ireland. Both of y'all's mouths are hanging open.
Because Beth, do you hear what you're saying? You just told us that you had a story on your podcast where the lady's embryo exploded.
Mm-hmm. You should have seen my face when she told me. Yeah, because she called. She was a friend of mine. She was actually part of our support group, and she called me and told me, and I'm like, I don't know how to answer you. What are you talking about? Because I thought I misunderstood her. And I'm like, what are you saying? So we have lost embryos. We have exploding embryos. There's a story on there of a precious woman from Ireland who the doctors could not find ovaries. When they did like an ultrasound, they could not find her ovaries. Okay. But she gave birth to a biological child.
Listen.
That's only the hand of God on that.
Like literally the hand of God.
But
literally.
God.
And we have stories of people that, somebody gets a positive pregnancy test the same day her husband got a cancer diagnosis. Stories like that all the way through, stories of healing, there's so many stories on there where it could only be God. There is no medical explanation for this pregnancy.
Right.
And we have stories of people who have never conceived and are living a life without children, and they are joyful and content. And I think that's as big a miracle as a baby coming home.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we have, it's a wide range of stories. There's probably not much that you can come up with that we haven't covered on that podcast.
I'm sure.
I'm
sure.
And it's
already blown my mind with the exploding embryos. I don't know how you top that.
Exploding embryos, lost embryos. Like there's nothing else.
FedEx truck. First of all, the first issue with that is the FedEx truck. Like, what are we doing?
So a lot of the couriers will use FedEx. And so next time you see a FedEx truck driving down the streets of Atlanta, just wonder how many babies are in the back of that FedEx truck. That's been a fun trivia question too. But that podcast has gone around the world. It's gone to all 50 states. We didn't know what would happen. It was just like, should we do this? And okay, we bought mics, but God has taken it, and he's taken it all around the globe. Even in countries where the gospel is not allowed. Wow. But because it's called the Sarah's Laughter Infertility Podcast,
I love
it can get in. We are in Muslim countries. We're in China. We're in Russia. We're in Indonesia. All over Africa. Africa loves it. I actually had a girl tell me she was a doctor, and she was doing some medical missions work in Africa, and she said she would she would put her earbuds in when she was finished treating patients and walk the dusty villages of this little place where she was in Liberia, and would listen to the podcast because she felt so alone in her infertility in a village in Africa, and we've had people tell us that the podcast is their support group because they don't have one, and it has been a beautiful way to let people tell their story because, I've done Sarah's Laughter for so long that I've had so many opportunities to tell my story and how God blessed us and how God worked and moved through our lives in it. But some people don't have that platform. They don't have that opportunity. And that was one of the things that I felt God kind of placing in my heart before we even started the podcast. And I just didn't realize when we thought it was fun to buy mics that was part of what he was doing, to give other people a chance to tell their story. And that's been wonderful too.
I love this.
That is freaking amazing, Beth.
I love it. That is
fun.
So we got podcasts, we got the Sarah's Laughter Ministry, and then you started doing a yearly conference. Beth, you were very ambitious with this thing. I love it.
Okay, so we've done the Hope Narrative as our conference, and we did it in Baton Rouge every year for several years. We've done it for several years.
Yeah.
And last year I got a wild hair that I wanted to take it on the road. This is another one of those things.
Thank you for coming to Georgia because we love you.
My sister lived in Georgia. I love y'all too. My sister lives in Georgia, right there where we did the conference. And that was one of the most irrational things we've ever done because the town was what, Geri, about this big?
Yeah, that's about right.
Listen,
that's even stretching it, but
it's stretching it because y'all didn't even have a hotel. It was a bed and breakfast.
I know.
It was nice.
It was nice, but that was it. And it's not like it's on like I-10 or anything. It was it's 2-lane roads getting to it. But I've never felt more strongly that God was calling me to do it. And so we did it. It was not a huge conference. Y'all know that. Y'all were both there. But I think it was one of the most impactful ones we've ever done.
I love that.
Just hearing the feedback from the people who were there. And so it was small and it was intimate and the most irrational thing we've ever done. But those kind of things, they scare me to death. I cancel every event before I actually put it on.
Me too. Me too. And Alisha just be looking at me like, girl, if you don't get your life together.
Well, Jason, see her face.
I don't cancel the events. I'm like, we don't work too hard. We're going to do this. And if it's raggedy, it's just raggedy.
You sound just like Jason. Because he knows I'm going to cancel every baby steps. I'm not going to tell anybody but him because the next morning I'll put it back on, and every conference I cancel, and then the next day I'm like, okay, I think we can do it,
like I'm fine. I just needed a moment. I'm okay. We're going to do this.
I have even gotten to where I'm like, Jason, I just don't think we need to do this conference. It's just, we're not getting enough response. It's not working. I'll put it back on tomorrow, but I need to cancel it tonight. I know I cancel everything we do, so don't panic. But yes, tonight I'm canceling it. So that's just Beth getting in the way, I think.
Right.
But we will be back. Go ahead.
I think it's a real thing just in general, like with any.
It is.
It's like people aren't signing up. People ain't doing what they need to do. And you got all these things. And somebody, the pipes burst at the location. It's always something, right?
Literally always something.
Every time. But that's just Satan fighting you because he knows the impact of a godly message to people who are marginalized. Whether it's infertility or loss or whatever it is. And you got to fight that battle to get those people in the seats. And it's not so much about getting the people in the seats as you going to war for those hearts that hurt. And so that's what it is. And sometimes you just get a little weary and you cancel everything. And then the next morning you put it back on, but we are going to be.
Spirit was like, excuse me, that's not what I told you.
That's not part of the plan, guys.
Look, that's when the Holy Spirit looks at the angel to his right and says, she's going to cancel it. Just watch. Then he says, don't worry about it. It'll be back on in the morning. Right. And so we will be back in the Atlanta area in September.
I'm so happy.
And I'm excited to see you ladies there. We'll be in Atlanta.
Be there. I'm sorry. I know you finally come
Well,
city. I had a scheduling conflict, and it was on my schedule in March.
I'm just going to cancel it then. I'll put it back on tomorrow, but right now it's canceled.
Right now it's canceled.
Right now it's canceled.
In the building.
I'll start it back up tomorrow, but right now it's canceled since you're not going to be there. But we're going to be in Atlanta.
I can.
We're going to be in Atlanta September 22nd and 23rd.
Yep.
The Hope Narrative at Believers Church, and if if anybody wants information about it, they can go to the Sarah's Laughter website, thehopenarrative.org. All those things.
We'll put all of that in the description so that they'll know.
And I would love to see all your ladies come, and let's just, these conferences, I say it all the time, it's like a family reunion with people you've never met before, but you know how it is. Y'all know how it is. When you meet somebody who's going through the same thing, there's just that instant connection. Mm-hmm. And then when you're people of faith, that connection's even stronger. Yep. So I'd love to have all y'all's ladies come see us and hear you speak, and, make sure I don't cancel it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to cancel it.
Don't cancel.
I'm not going to cancel it.
I've seen the fruit of your labor. One of the couples that was there last year, they just had a baby. I can't remember.
Yeah, the young lady that I prayed for last year, I think her name is Crystal. Yeah, Crystal. She just had her baby.
Yeah, she just had a baby. So that's so exciting. So, this is just a testament to God's faithfulness through your ministry.
Sure.
That the prayer and support is needed, and God is using that to be work miracles in people's lives. So this
And another thing that we do at these conferences, we always do that memorial service for miscarried and stillborn babies, and to also recognize embryos lost in the IVF process, because a lot of people grieve those little embryos and nobody recognizes that hurt.
Yeah, I didn't know you did that last part. That is so amazing.
And we'll do a butterfly release and everything in honor of the babies. We'll give you a butterfly for each baby that we're honoring. It's a very moving thing, because especially if the baby is lost early in pregnancy, most of the time, people get the comments like, well, at least you weren't very far along. And at least, you can get pregnant.
That's such a dumb comment, though.
But they do. They get that. And even if they don't say stuff like that, if you had a 3-year-old that died, people would gather around you and they would bring you food and they would check on you.
There'd be a whole funeral and the whole night. Yeah.
And if you were pregnant for 3 weeks, people probably wouldn't say anything. Or if they did, it would, they don't know what to say, so they don't say. So we want to acknowledge those babies. If you found out today that you were pregnant and miscarried tonight, that was your baby. The embryos lost in the IVF process, they matter too. And so we want to recognize those as well. So we do all those things at the conference. We're going to be doing some amazing sessions. We're going to talk about IVF. Is that something that a Christian can do, or is that playing God?
I'm so glad you are covering that topic. We talk about.
I know that's a hot topic right there.
That is a hot topic, but it needs to be discussed in a biblical manner.
Yes,
because
and so
people out here confused.
Yeah, and we're going to do that at the Hope Narrative. We're going to talk about embryo adoption, because I think that's the most amazing thing on the whole planet, and I love it, and I am obsessed with embryo adoption. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about if you feel God calling you to launch ministry. Come on out and we'll give you some practical tips and teach you how to do it. So that, and then Geri is going to speak for us. And look, as soon as I heard you speaking last year, it's like, we're going to get her next year. Right?
I love it.
It was so much fun.
Oh,
I had fun with
you were so impactful too.
Really good time.
So impactful. Yes, indeed. So, a lot happens. We always have some support from men, because as little support as women can sometimes get, the men get even less, because they're expected to take care of us. Yeah. And so there will be some support from men there as well. And
which
so
is good.
all the things.
I remember watching a story from a pastor, and she was talking about her husband. They had miscarried and gone to the hospital and all the things, and she was balled up and crying, and then it was like, I can't remember if the Holy Spirit or something happened, or she heard him crying, and she realized, oh, he's grieving just as much as I am. This was important for him as much as it was important for me. And so, the fact that you have that support for the men, because it's so important for them as well, especially now that we're in seasons where we are advocating for our men, and we are making sure that our men are emotionally stable, because we have asked them to be masculine for so long that they don't have any, they're not in touch with their emotions and their feelings. And so it's, it's expressed in different ways. And so helping them to get through these emotions so that, in a healthy way is just noble. And we thank you.
Like, seriously. And that's one of the
You.
reasons, like in womb prep, we always tell the women, it may be happening in your body, but it's happening to your husband too.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
we express that a lot, because sometimes just because your husband doesn't outwardly cry doesn't mean he's not sad about it. And so,
absolutely. And when Jason hurts, I want him to be okay.
Right.
And sometimes, there are some things that a woman just needs a woman to talk to. And I think it's the same way with these guys. They need another man to come alongside them and say, you know what, this hurts. And you lose a baby and you're not getting to throw the ball in the front yard and teach them your traditions. And that loss is profound. And it's okay that you hurt, and then come alongside you. So I think it's everything we do like this, every conference we do, we always have something for men. Because
it's needed.
It is
definitely needed. Yes. And I was surprised when I went to the conference last year at the amount of men that were in attendance. A majority of the people who were in attendance were married. They were all majority were couples were there.
So we had a good number of men.
Great number of men. And for me to be like, oh my gosh, it's so many men that are here, and the fact that they came is like a huge step for them. So
definitely, because I promise you, most of them were invited by their wives.
We're coming. Here's the bag.
I mean, invited is a good word. That's what you want to say.
Such a great word.
Probably, I don't know of any of them where the guy said, "Hey, honey, I found out about this conference I want us to go to." That's probably not what happened.
It's not a thing.
I think it's a pretty easy
not
guess.
a thing.
That's funny.
That is funny. Wow, Beth, we are so glad that you were able to join us on today.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me.
Yes. So one last question. If you encountered a young woman that is just found out that she's going to have difficulty getting pregnant, what would you tell her?
I would want her to know that God is passionate about her story. That this is not a punishment. It's going to feel like it when the cycles fail and the period starts. It's going to feel like God has abandoned you and left you alone, but he absolutely has not. He is there with you every time the pregnancy test is negative. He's there with you when the doctor tells you that there's no heartbeat. He's there with you in the crazy celebration when you bring that baby home. He is involved in this story. Your infertility is not a mistake. It's not a punishment. Some of it you won't see till you're on the other side of this story, but I believe God will show it to you. And I mentioned before, I believe he'll give you those daily double portions. You might have to look for them, but some way that he reminds you that he's there. He's involved in this, and he loves you crazy. He loves you if you're crazy too, I guess. But I mean, that he is so involved in your story. It's a good thing, huh? But he is so involved in your story, and he has purposes and plans not only for you, but for the baby he has designed for you, no matter how that baby gets here. That would be what I would want somebody to know going into it, because if you build your foundation on that, then there's so many emotional ups and downs, and there's going to be times when you feel like you just can't do it another day. But if that foundation of your experience is that God loves you, he has a purpose and a plan for this infertility season of your life, and he's passionate about your story, you can build on that. And kind of teaches you how to handle all the crazy that comes with it.
Amen.
Amen. Well,
Thank
Beth,
you.
this has been so good. I'm so happy that
Yeah.
you were able to come on
Oh,
and just tell
sure.
your story and to just talk with us for a little bit. Alicia, did you have anything before we close out?
No, this
No?
has been enjoyable, and it's
It was
always
very
great to
enjoyable.
be great to be in Beth's presence because she's just such a
She's so sweet.
grateful, thankful person, and just so sweet. So I love you.
Well, I appreciate y'all and what y'all are doing out there in Atlanta, and I really appreciate how the two ministries are working together.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know, I do. I love joining with you and being a part of your ministry and you being a part of mine, and I think that's how it's supposed to be.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate y'all letting me come on and spend some time with you this evening.
It was our
Yeah.
pleasure.
It definitely was our pleasure.
Oh,
A couple of announcements before we go, guys. Empower Retreat is the week before Beth's conference. So September's will be busy for y'all. Just come hang out with
yes, it
us
will.
every weekend in September. So
Right.
the third weekend in September, Womprep is hosting an Empower Retreat in the North Georgia mountains. Y'all, my friend Takesha always says that she needs to go pray in the mountains to be with Jesus. And that's exactly what we're going to do the third weekend in
How
September.
nice.
So if you are a woman looking at this video and you're dealing with infertility, miscarriage, or infant loss, come join us for the Empower Retreat. It's going to be a weekend of food, sisterhood, fun, but also worship and prayer and strategy. And you can get more information about that at wombprep.com. And of course, the Womb Prep private group on Facebook, the group where it all goes down, the group where we get instruction, the group where me and Tiffany tell y'all about yourselves and how you're bogus for doing certain things. It goes down in the group, but we promise we love you. We're always praying for you guys. So if you feel like you need some support, if you feel like you need to be surrounded by other women that get it, and you just need to vent or whatever the case is, come join us in the Womb Prep
Mhm.
group on Facebook. We would love to have you. Alicia, does the Motherhood Foundation have anything coming up? You have anything coming up? Because y'all, Alicia got like 10 ministries and businesses, and it's a lot going on with Alicia. So I'd be having to ask.
Something. So June 21st, I am doing my Pretty and Purpose workshop. So if
Okay.
y'all head over to allthingsaliciaj.com, sign up for that. It is a free virtual event. We're gonna help you find your purpose while you're waiting on this baby. And I'll also walk confidently in it as well. And then also, I am doing my book launch party that will be in July.
Yay.
Yay.
A virtual and a in person. So more details to come on that. The virtual will
Good
be
deal.
on the 6th and the 7th. And we're still deciding whether or not in person will be on the 8th or the 9th.
Okay.
All the details will be on allthingsaliciaj.com. That's where you'll find everything. I will not go into detail of all the other things that are going on. We're just going to handle June and July right now.
Well,
So,
keep the secrets in. Yes.
absolutely.
And guys, you already heard Beth say that the Hope Narrative Conference is the fourth weekend in September. So you can go to, is it hopenarrative.org?
HopeNarrative.org. And Geri, if I can throw this out there,
Yes.
I've just finished a new book. The book will be available in about 2 weeks. It's called Daily Double Portions, which is probably why that phrase pops out in my thinking right now because I'm a little
I
obsessed.
love
But it's
it.
called Daily Double Portions, and it is 100 devotionals for your journey through infertility.
I love
So
that.
Wow.
that's a lot. It's
It is.
it's a lot, it's been a long time in the making, and so that book is going to be available in about 2 weeks on Amazon.
All right.
Perfect. Well, guys, you
Congrats.
heard it here. Beth Barker-Forbus was with us in the studio. We are so happy that we got to sit down and talk to her and to hear her story. And so, yeah, so Beth, are you on any social media? Where can the people find you?
I am on Facebook because I'm old, I guess. Everybody else is on Instagram, but I'm on Facebook, and it is Beth Barker-Forbus on there. Sarah's
Okay.
Laughter is also on there. And
Okay.
it's the whole big long name, Sarah's Laughter Christian Support for Infertility and Child Loss, because there's a Sarah's Laughter in the UK. So
Oh, gotcha.
we are Sarah's Laughter Christian Support for Infertility and Child Loss. We have the Hope Narrative stuff. And we also have, if you're ever interested in that fun run where we give away IVFs, you can check out babystepsfunrun.com.
All right, guys, that's it for tonight. We love y'all. We are praying for y'all. Make sure that you are staying prayed up. Make sure that you have a running conversation with the Father, because that's the only way you go get through this is prayer. Like if you're trying to do this without prayer, it's not gonna work. Okay, all three of us on this screen, on your screen, can tell you it will not work without prayer. It's not gonna work. So keep praying, keep worshiping, keep fasting, and keep believing. All right, y'all. We love y'all. Bye.